Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to another Star Trek Away Missions, the miniatures board game unboxing. This is for the Q Organized Play Kit. So what this was is the Q Organized Play Kit contains everything you need to support an event for 10 players. So this is I wanted to do this video because, one, I wanted to have, personally myself, I wanted to have all the different characters for all the collection, but two is also so everyone else, or you could watch this to see whether you think it's worth picking up. Because you might be like, hey, I'd like to have Q as well, but is it worth spending the money to buy the big set with all 10 characters, even though you're never going to need all 10, or should you try and hunt down, maybe you have to pay a little bit extra price for only buying one or two, or however it works. Or however people are selling it. So that's kind of the point of this video. So just straight up, before I even look through anything else, the whole idea of this is supposed to be is so that game stores can run separate tournaments. And it says for up to 10 players, which essentially means either 5 weekly events or 5 games at a time. It plays for 5 separate games of two player games is how it works. With that also being said, is at the end of the event, all 10 players involved get to take home a Q miniature, a deck of cards for Q to add to their collection, which we'll go over all of them in them, and a couple of tokens. Now, where the little bit of oddball thing of it is because then the rest of the stuff that's for the actual event, which adds like an alternate mode of play for your game, there's only 5 sets. It's enough for every 2 players. So if you pick this up as you only bought one, like in the store, or you like find this on eBay or wherever, and you only pick up one set of Q with his deck of cards, you can mix them and match them into any one of your other sets, and play around their special little rules for how that works. But if you want to play the event stuff again, using the extra deck of cards and the tokens, and the stuff where Q kind of just interacts with your game, but he's not actually a fully playable character, there's only enough for 5. So that's why lots of times you'll see this being sold as a pack of buying 2 characters at a time. Is the idea is because then you buy it, you get one, your second player gets the other set of stuff, and then you can play the event together. And that's why a lot of times you see it sold as a 2-pack instead of him being sold as 10 individual cards. And that's why they also break down all the numbers. They don't add up right. But we will go through everything and see exactly what everything in there is. So let's just flip over to the back of the box here quick. So Q is an enigmatic entity from the Q Continuum, delights in spreading chaos in the lives of mere mortals, instilling valuable lessons in the process. This organized playtest has everything needed to play 4-game campaign for up to 10 players. Perfect to bring your game group together for big events. I think I said 5, it's for 4 for 10. But yeah, you do need a copy of at least the core set to play this. Alright, so let's pop this out. Let's take a look at, so if we actually pop this out, we have an empty space for all the different cards. We have all our different miniatures. They're all the exact same. So let's just go ahead and take a look at him really quick. And they have him in kind of like his regal outfit. Although there's been times in the show when he's appeared like in lots of times in like a Star Trek uniform to kind of blend in with everybody else. Or different other forms. You can basically take whatever form he pleases. But yeah, this is the little miniature you're going to get for him. He's going to have, like, interesting little base there. Has Q on there, of course. And then what I'm going to do before I jump into the event stuff is we're going to look at I'm going to do a quick look at the tokens. And we're going to actually look at the actual character stuff for playing him regular. So here are a bunch of tokens we're going to get. First of all, we're going to get a bunch of these Q tokens. So each player, there's 10, so each of the player will get, each individual player would essentially get 1 token. Each 2-pack would get 2. There are a bunch of 5 and 10 point tokens, so 2 per player. These are just additional tokens to help with the game to go along. Then the other token pack we have are Q-Leans. or there's lots of stuff with Q-related things in here. There's red ones and there's blue ones. And on the back side, they're dogs and androids. So the red are androids, the blue are dogs. This is for one of the game modes, the event modes, where each player gets one. So there's 16 tokens, but if each player gets 3, there would be 15 with 1 remainder. I think they just put 16 because it was easier to print that way. So those are different tokens. We will get in to see what more of those are. Just other things we're going to get are the oversized mission cards, which explain they're double-sided. So there'll be 5 sets of 2, which explain the different game modes. There will be 10 deck of cards. These are the ones that each player gets to take home with their miniature, which we'll look at that in a moment. And then we have 5 sets of Immortal AQ event cards. So these ones show at the back like this. These are for the event. And the regular ones will have a yellow, kind of looks like a support deck. But they do have the different backs to kind of help show them off. We do have a rule sheet, which explains what you kind of are going to need for each mission, and all that. And then here we want to look at this part here. Using Q outside of organized play. Each player in this organization event will go home with a Q miniature, character card, 10-card Q Mortal deck, which they can use in their future games by adding Q as their awakening in place of their normal mission specialist, regardless of team affiliation. So he can join up with the Federation, the Klingons, the Romulans, or even the Borg if you'd like, although it would be kind of weird for him to join the Borg. At the start of the game, they shuffle their 10-card Mortal Q deck and place it face down beside their mission deck. At the start of each of their Q activations, or whenever there's a bonus action to take an action with Q, they immediately reveal the top card of his deck. So his cards don't get like shuffled into your regular deck. They play as a separate thing. So it's kind of like the way the show goes. Your guys are all trying to do your missions and do your objectives and all that, and then when Q's turn comes up, he's going to add a little chaos into your turn. And then we have the 10 character boards. So let's go ahead and take a look at those character boards quick. And just, again, they're all going to be the same, but let's see what we have. So, when you buy this or get this, you will get your Q character board, which will say Q, the immortal made human from the Q Continuum, which is where it has. Q has every specialization, which is a very good way to list that because some of the earlier ones, earlier in like the base set didn't have treachery, and then later sets added treachery, and they could add other keywords eventually here and there, or specialization, so he'll just, no matter what, any new one pops up, he automatically gains it. His race is, of course, Q. He is also a specialist. He has one ability called Only Mortal. At the start of this game, shuffle your Q Immortal deck at the start of each of Q's activations, and whenever you use a bonus action token to take an action with Q, reveal the top Mortal Q deck and play it immediately. My camera fell down a little bit. Yeah, so that's basically what his is gonna do. So he can still do like skill tests and other stuff like that, because he's always gonna have his activations. You're gonna kind of mess around with what goes on. He has 1 attack, 2 defense, 3 skill, and he has his 4 movement spaces. So he's got a lot of skill stuff. He's not really the attack or defensing. On the back here, we have nothing reveals humanity so well as the games it plays. Q is, or perhaps are, immensely powerful immortals from the Q Continuum. Q both judges Captain Picard and humanity to see if they are a threat to the universe, and teaches him to see the universe in different ways. It is not safe out here. It's a wondrous with treasure so Psychic desires both subtle and gross, but it is not for the timid. And then he has unaffiliated. When not playing with the Q campaign, players take the Q as their mission specialist with their away team. Cool. So you have different options to play as them. Let's take a look at the actual deck then we get to use. So to start off, we do have 2 mission cards, and then we have our regular support cards, but they're going to have the same backs. Reasoning for this is that his 2 mission cards have special effects in it. It says, Wanted. Immediately play this card on the table. Has bounty and negotiations worth 20 points. Action. Take an opposed diplomacy skill test with your Q against a hostile character of your opponent's choice. If you roll 2 or more successes, shuffle this card back into your Q mortal deck. Mortal Q deck. Interrupt. This interrupt may be used by any player. Score this card when your character neutralizes the owner's Q. So this card goes on the table. You can then now play an action with it to try and do an opposed diplomacy skill test with your Q against a hostile character of your opponent's choice. So basically what you want to do is take this action to try and get this card back in your deck to hide it. And hide it as wanted. Your opponent then, instead, may try and neutralize Q, and if they do, they can score this card for themselves. Our other mission card is Q's Redemption, which is also played immediately to the table. Interrupt. Place a stun token on this card when your character scores a mission with backup from Q. So if Q's hanging around and you need to get backup, you put a stun token on here. Score. Score this card when it has 3 or more stun tokens. Remove Q from the game. Bonus. Gain 1 bonus action at the start of each round while this card is in your scoring area. So the idea of this is get this out there and basically have Q be avoiding his wanted card, but then be trying to have him stand near other guys and give bonuses to them while they're doing their missions. Alright, so he does have his support cards, which are events. So immediately choose, Q gets the point. Immediately choose one of the following. Interrupt. Each Q character takes 1 damage. Or interrupt. Each player with a Q in the playing area discards a random support card from their hand. What is fun about these is it says each Q. So that means I could play a Q on my team. You could play, another player could play a Q on their team. Like you would do during the organized, some of the events, like one of the event campaigns actually has Qs on the board, miniatures. But yeah, if you're playing this a regular game, yeah, you could hit everybody with this. We have Rescue. Each player may search their mission or support deck discard pile for a card. Each player with a Q in the player area may search for a second card. It's a gift, so that's kind of cool. So if you have a Q, you get 2 cards. Q's gift. Each player with a bonus action token, or each player gains a bonus action token. Each player with a Q in the play area gains a second bonus action. Shuffle this card back into the Mortal Q deck. The Insufferable Q. Each player with a character other than Q within line of sight of your Q must place a stun token on one of those characters. Gain a bonus action token. You may only use this bonus action on your Q, then shuffle it back into your deck. So basically, every time he plays, you can keep getting these bonus actions given to him. He can then use them to draw more of these cards to keep playing, doing more actions, trying to help support his team, do stuff like that. We do have some interesting ones. These are called trait events. So we have Captain Q. Immediately play this trait event on your Q. Shuffle any other Q trait events on your Q back into the Mortal Q deck. Rolling additional die roll for any commander or diplomacy skill test taken by this Q. So this is kind of cool. So a trait event basically gives you bonuses for your traits, which he has commander or diplomacy because he has everything. Action: one of the top 2 cards of your Mortal Q deck, place one on the bottom of your deck and place the other on the top. We have Helpful Q. So again, immediately shuffle it. Roll an additional die for any engineering or science skill test taken by this Q. Draw a support card when your character passes a skill test with backup from Q to score a mission. The Impeccable Q. Q rolls an additional die when receiving backup. Hostile characters other than Q roll 1 less die to a minimum of 1 die when they take a skill test in line of sight of your Q. And then finally, we have 1 equipment card, which is Q's Trumpet. The Trumpet, tool of annoyance. Attack die +1, damage, melee, and stun. So although he normally doesn't have an attack, like you could give him other cards. You could give him a phaser or a backlith, or whatever, some sort of stun rifle, a poison dagger. Otherwise, this would be the only one he can personally get from his deck. But this should only be played on Q. Interrupt. When Q scores a mission, immediately draw and play a Mortal Q card. Then shuffle this card back into the Mortal deck. But that's kind of fun. He doesn't hurt people, but he can at least stun them. So this is a kind of cool thing you're going to get with this. You can have this sitting aside, and you get to play this. Now, this is also going to be used during some of the other events, and things like that as well. But this is the deck you get to use if you want to play with him in your team. Alright, so we're going to set that aside. We're going to jump in here and look at this. So using your organized play kit, each kit has enough material to support 10 players playing through 4 away missions. Either a league played for over 4 weeks or as a 4-game tournament. Whichever you want, hang out the parts as they progress. So as total sheets, we went over this. 5 sets of away mission, each with 2 double-sided large cards, 5 sets of Immortal Q cards, each with 8 cards and 10 Immortal Q cards. Or Immortal Q cards. So the Immortal Q cards are the ones you play as when he's on your away team. The Immortal Q cards are the event ones, when he's kind of sitting over everything, messing with everybody. When you play as a league, your group plays as one of the 4 away missions each week. Before each week's game, read the instructions for the away mission you'll be playing, and then select the component needed for that week's event. Ready, hang them out. Remember to collect the cards on each game, as you'll need them for the next game. Preparing for tournament play. When you play the tournament, your group plays all 4 away missions, one after another. So there's 4 missions in here. So it's basically, if you're playing like 4 separate games, to make sure you keep this stuff. So that way, like, when the next week comes up, you're going to need them extra cards and the miniatures back. Otherwise, you can play 4 straight missions right in a row. This breaks down each one of what you need with each one. So if you're playing away mission 1, just playing with Q. Away mission 2 is Q-Lians. Away mission 3 is Deja Q. And away mission 4 is Excuse Me. And on the back side, it has special rules. Unless otherwise stated below, the cards in this organized play follow as normal rules in the rulebook. Away mission cards work like additional core missions for both players. At the end of the game, both players see if they have scored away mission cards when they check whether they have scored their own core mission cards. Immortal Q cards for games 1, 2, and 3. Shuffle the game's Immortal Q deck at the start of the game and place it beside the game area. At the start of the action phase, put the top card of the deck. Its effects last till the end of the round. At the end of the round, place that Immortal Q card at the bottom of the deck. If an Immortal Q card has an action, any character can take that action. In these games, Q is a marker that does not interact with the player character in any way apart from the effects from the Immortal Q cards. So the first 3 games, you actually don't have Q on the board. He might be on there, but he's not doing anything. He's just kind of there to mess with everybody. You play Mortal Q for game 4. At the start of the game, each player shuffles their 10-card Mortal Q deck, places it face down beside them. At the start of each of their Q's activation, or when they use a bonus Q token action, they play a card. So game 4 plays more like a regular mission, except you're just adding Q to your away team instead of replacing him like it says on the outside. Yeah, so kind of very interesting. This is a neat way, I think, to like add extra external things messing with your game, to just change it up, in case you need something different. They could definitely do this. So here's going to say what you need for your components for each game. In the away mission 1, you have 1 game card for one mission, away mission. So that'll be just playing with Q, away mission number 1. And then you have times 3 game cards of cards from 1 and 3 immortal cards. So what that means is, in our Immortal Q deck, in the bottom corner it's going to say what games they work with. So some work for games 1 and 3, some work for 2 and 3. So when you're playing them, you're not going to play every single one of these cards. If you're playing game 1 and 3, you're only going to use these 3 cards. If you're playing game 2, you're only going to use, if you're playing game 1, you'll only use these 3 cards. If you're playing game 2, you'll only use these 5 cards. If you're playing game 3, then you use all of them. So it's kind of an interesting little mix how that works. Players use their normal way team. At the start of the game, players shuffle the 3 immortal cue cards, place it face down beside the game area. At the start of each action phase, so turn 1, turn 2, and 3, you get 1 of each. At the end of each round before scoring, both players roll to see what cue gives them before departing. So we're going to go ahead and look at what that does, the mission. We'll look at those cards a little bit afterwards. We're going to go through each mission first. Alright, I'm going to back this up a bit. So just playing with Q. Shuffle the deck, start of the game. Before assigning bonus actions, draw an immortal Q card and apply its effect. At the end of the game. At the end of the game, before scoring, each player rolls a die in the following table. If you roll a 1, discard your highest scoring mission. 2, your opponent discards their highest scoring mission. 3, place a random mission card from your opponent's scoring area in your scoring area. 4, discard all missions in your hand. Score a random mission card from your discard pile. 5, lose 20 points, and 6, lose 40 points. So it's kind of interesting. This is, I think it's kind of like supposed to be like the progression of Q. When he first comes on, he's kind of benevolent, versus being more helpful, being more benevolent. So this is kind of him really messing with everybody. At the end of the game, he's gonna have a lot of stuff where it's gonna hurt everybody. Alright, so that's the first one. Then if we look at game 2, you'll get mission card for 2. You have your Q miniature will be out. You have 1 on the table. You have 5 cards for the game 2 and 3. So those are the ones we saw. 3 red Qlian tokens and 3 blue Qlian tokens and 8 bonus point tokens. Use your away teams as normal. At the start of the game, the players shuffle 5 immortal Q cards and place them face down beside the game area. At the start of each action phase, the player reveals the top card of its effect for the rest of the round. Each player has 3 Qlians assisting them and score bonus points for their killer that causes damage to a hostile character. So that will be our little tokens here. So one team gets red, one team gets blue. And then let's see how that works. Alright. So, shuffle the deck. Each player gives 3 of the same color. At the start of each action phase, remember there's 3 action phases in the entire round. Before assigning bonus action tokens, each player places all their Qlian tokens that are not in the mission area so that they are not adjacent to any character. Once all Qlians are in the mission area, draw an immortal Q card and apply its effects. All Qlian tokens are hostile characters. You cannot take an attack action against your own Qlians and cannot take skill tests against or place trait event cards on any Qlian. Qlian tokens roll 2 defense dice to attack against attack actions and can use Qlian in the same space for backup. Any damage done to a Qlian removes the token from the mission area. Activate your Qlian tokens as if they're friendly characters. They can only take the following actions. So you're going to place these down somewhere on the board at the beginning of the round. And if they get defeated during the round, that's fine. They'll come back at the beginning of the next round. So basically, and they're not worth any extra points or anything like that immediately. Or just for having them. But yeah, you roll 2 dice for defense. They also work as backup for each other, so keeping them as kind of a group is very helpful. But yeah, you cannot attack your own, but you can attack your opponents. And you cannot take skill tests against or place trait cards on them. So you can't test against them as an opposing character, or you can't place cards on them. Your actions are advance, move a Qlian up to 4 spaces. Qlian cannot enter a space occupied by a player's character or another player's Qlian tokens. So they're not part of your team exactly, but you get to use actions for them. And then attack with musket. This attack rolls 2 attack dice and can use Qlian in the same space for backup. Gain 5 bonus points for each time your musket attack causes 1 or more damage. And there's, I'm going to see if I can get a little bit better of a close-up of them. Yes, these little guys with muskets. They do summons to help fight, and again, some are called androids, some are called dogs. Which there might be references to those on the cards. Yes, this is kind of interesting. So, besides the effect that the Immortal Q deck is going to have, which we'll see when we get to those, you're going to have, each player's going to have 3 extra characters they get to move around and can attack with, basically. That's all they can do, which is going to cause a little extra chaos, right? Because now you have, essentially, if you're playing someone like the Federation who's not necessarily trying to attack, you have these extra defense guys you can throw up, or attackers you can try and cause some extra damage, possibly gain some extra points. And they gain points for doing damage, even if they're not defeated. But then it also makes your opponent have to decide, or yourself, is do you spend your attack actions, or your actions spend your attacks trying to get rid of these guys, who are just going to come back at the next round anyhow, or do you just try and avoid them? So it does make the game a little bit more crazy and hectic. Alright. And then we have Away Mission 3, Deja 2. So it's going to have Game 3 mission card, Q miniature, the game cards from 1 and 3 cards, and 5, so the entire 8 card deck. 2 Q tokens, 3 dog tokens, and 3 android tokens. So this is why we're going to probably use the other side, and the bonus points. Use your away team at the start of the game, shuffle all 8 Immortal Q cards, place them face down. At the start of each action phase, reveal the top 1. So now we have Mission 3, Deja Q. Shuffle the beginning game. Place Q on a terminal on each opponent's starting area. Each player places a Q token, so that will be our special Q tokens here. So you place 1 Q token on another player's starting area terminal, and I think that's why they have them that size, as opposed to just playing Q on the board somewhere, because then it's the size of like the terminal. It's not taking up extra space or getting confused with a player character. Before assigning bonus actions, drawing a Immortal Q card and apply its effect. Any character can use the following special action. Take a skill test at a terminal in a space with Q token. If pass, score 20 bonus points. Pass or fail, roll a die on the following table. So, you're going to place a Q token at a terminal in each opponent's starting area. And then someone can go to that terminal, try and score on there. And if they pass, they score 20 points, which is pretty good. Either way, then you roll. On a 1, the character gains the dog keyword and loses all other keywords and their specializations. Place 2 stun tokens on the character. And I think that's the point of having the token, is because in that way you can drop a dog or an android token on one of the character cards, so you can remember they're a dog or an android. The character gains the android keyword. 3, if the character is an android, score 5 bonus points. On 4, the character takes 2 damage. On 5, place all characters in this character's space at the command terminal in the crew quarters. If there's already a character there, place this character where that character was. So swap them. And 6, draw mission cards and immediately score it. Yeah, so you just need this a little bit differently. So then your opponent places the Q token at the terminal in empty space on the same mission board. So you have to move it somewhere else on the board. So what this is going to end up doing is causing a distraction. 20 points is a decent amount, but again, are you going to spend your turns trying to run over and hopefully do that skill test and maybe get that 20 points? Also knowing that if you challenge that, now you have to roll the dice, which could potentially make you take 2 damage, swap your characters around, which could mess you up, could get you an extra score, but could also get you the dog keyword, which makes you lose all your stuff and takes 2 stun, which could basically shut your character down. So it's a big risk reward. You could get 20 points, and then you could also draw another mission and score it, Or you could fail it and then get the dog keyword and lose that character essentially for another full round. Because they have 2 stun tokens on or have to play extra stuff. It's just kind of a weird thing. And then it moves somewhere else in the terminal. And then now again, you have to decide, do we send someone to run over there to get that? Or do we just try and focus on another thing? Adds some chaos to the game, which is really cool. Alright, then we finally have Away Mission 4, which is Excuse Me. So this comes with the Away Mission card, 2 cube miniatures, 1 per player, 2 cute character cards, 4 health pegs, which didn't give us any extra health pegs on here, so hopefully we have enough. I guess that would have been a good thing to do, is I should have included some extra health pegs with these characters just to make sure. And then 2 Immortal Q cards. So this removes the Immortal Q decks, and now we're going to play the Immortal. It says both players add Q as a character in their away team to their normal, in addition to the normal mission specialist, and play this mission. At the start of Q's activation, or whenever you use a bonus action, reveal the top Immortal Q card. So they take their miniature and their Q deck away with them so they can use them at the end game. So basically, you play the first 3 where Q is just messing with everyone and interacting with the game while you're still trying to play as normal. Then in 4, he joins your team to help mess with you or your opponents on a personal level. And then you need to take your character away. So in addition, so this is also a thing. Now it says, again, going back to the regular play, if you're using it outside of organized play, he's supposed to take place of your specialist. Playing Away Mission 4, the idea is he joins the game as a extra member. So now you could really play him in your own personal way, either direction. You just add him on as your team. But I feel if you're going to add him as an additional member, each player needs to add him, just to keep it balanced. Alright, at the beginning of the game, remove the Wanted and Q's Redemption cards from the Immortal deck, which we saw before. Shuffle the remaining cards and place the Immortal Q deck beside your mission deck. At the start of the first round, before the draw phase, each player reveals their Wanted and Q Immortal Redemption cards. So when you're playing with him as an additional, they both start out at the beginning of the game. Activating Q when playing Q as a mission specialist. At the start of each of Q's activations, you play a bonus token, reveal the top card. So he plays like he would play the regular way. Just now he's an additional member. Alright, so let's look at these Immortal Q cards. We're going to have, zoom down a little bit here. And again, you draw these are going to affect all games. This will be used for games 1 and 3. As you know, all ask, Q, and then just be asked. For this round, each operations terminal is now a command terminal. Each command terminal is now a science terminal. Each science terminal is now a medical terminal, and each medical terminal is now an operations terminal. That's going to cause some chaos in the game. Again, because what happens is, let's say you draw this on the first round. Alright, not so bad. You got to remember all these things are messed up, but you could at least plan where you're going to go and stuff. Except for remember that if you don't do something by the end of that round, now round 2 comes, this goes away, right? Oh crap, now everything else. But the same fact, if you're standing there like, alright, next round I'm going to do a science terminal lab and score this big mission. All of a sudden, for round 3, it becomes the medical terminal. That messes up your plans, right? It's a very devastating card. We have Q-less. At the start of this round, players may either recover a damage or remove a condition token from each character. Then each player gains 2 bonus tokens. That's pretty crazy, right? So this is actually a really fun one there. And then the third one, which again for game 1, is Miscue. At the start of this round, each player in the order of the first activation may play any hostile character into an empty space. Then, in the same order, players may put a stun token on a different hostile character. Finally, each player discards a mission card at random. So like for the second one was all about helping you by healing you and giving extra tokens. This one's going to hurt everybody. Because now you're going to move characters around the board somewhere else. place a stun token on someone, and then everyone has to discard a card. Alright, then for games 2 and 3, we have Cupid. The players roll a die. The highest scoring player places Q in an empty space. So this is one where it did mention you're going to have the Q miniature out at some point. For this round, any character that's backup that is in line of sight of Q rolls 2 less dice for all attack actions skill tests instead of 1 additional die. Ooh. So, yeah, basically, the idea is supposed to be if you're with somebody else, he's going to make them maybe fall in love like Cupid style, and make them roll less dice instead of extra dice. Otherwise, you have an action that any character can take. Roll a die. On a roll of 4 or more, place Q in an empty space. On a roll of 1, the opponent places Q in an empty space. So you can kind of move him around. That way you can kind of spot other characters. And if you place him right, he might spot 3 or 4 different people. Interesting. We have Q's Piece. All players roll a die. Higher player places Q on empty space. For this round, any character in line of sight of Q rolls 1 less attack die while taking an action. Or also rolls an additional die for all skill tests. So, better skills, less attacking. Benefit for certain factions versus others. Action a character may have 4 or more, may move him 1, the opponent rolls a die, puts him in an empty space. Then we have hiding Qs. Same thing, roll a die, place him somewhere. For this round, any character in line of sight of Q rolls an additional attack dice from taking an action, rolls 1 less die for all skill tests, so the exact opposite. The bottom lets you move him around. True Q. For this round, any character as backup that is in line of sight of Q rolls 2 additional die for all attack and skill actions instead of 1 additional dice. This works the opposite of the first one. And then the last card is Q's Whim. Each time a player scores a mission, they must shuffle all other mission cards in their hand back into their mission deck and draw the same number of mission cards. Oh, that could mess up everything. If the player could score several missions at the same time, they must choose 1 to score. Then shuffle the rest back into their mission deck and draw before playing another card. So the first one is going to be a pain. So if each time a player scores a mission, they must shuffle all other mission cards in their hand back in their mission deck, draw the same number of cards. So you're going to score one, that's great. You have to shuffle all the rest, so that's going to ruin any of your plans. You really have to maybe focus on one mission at a time. But it also means if you have any end-of-game missions you were just hanging on to, you're going to lose them. So that's going to ruin that plan. And on the second part, if a player could score several missions on the same time, they must choose 1 to score, then shuffle the rest back into their deck. So yeah, if you score 2 at the same time, like maybe one thing's like, score this card if you neutralize an opponent, and this other one was like, take a attack test and shoot someone, right? You have to pick which one you want, and then you lose the rest. So that's very interesting. And then also remember, so like the first game is again just gonna have these 3 cards, which are going to just kind of really mess with the game. So in order of activation, take actions, heal characters, or mess with all the terminals. And then in 2, besides the Whim card, we're also going to have all the ones that move the Q character around in line of sight, does different stuff. But when you're playing game 3, you mix all of them together. And the thing is, since you're only playing 3 rounds, so in game 1 you only have 3 cards, so you're going to have all 3 of them active. In game 2, you have 5 cards, so you're going to get 3 of the 5. Then you play game 3, now you have access to all the cards, but you only have 3 of them being played. So it's kind of cool. So it slowly builds up which cards you're going to get. And it's really a fun idea. It's definitely neat. And then, then again, you play game 4, now you're just adding Q to your deck, and you're removing these all together. But that is definitely an interesting idea. I'm going to throw the queue back up here for a sec. So, yeah. What are my overall thoughts on this? Is this worth picking up? If you can pick up a set, you can pick up one if you just want to add him to the game and you want to have that extra little thing just for yourself. And change him as a different specialist. You want to add him to different factions and see what can happen. You can find one copy of him and his deck. You can get it for relatively cheap. It's probably not a bad idea. I would probably recommend trying to pick up the 2-pack. Because then if you have other friends or whoever, family that also play the game, if you have, that way each player can play each side, you can play all the events together. Or if it's just like, hey, I have my game, my friend has a copy of the game, you could give him the other half, then you guys could get together and play together, or each have your own set of 2. So even that's not bad. But yeah, picking up a full set of 10, it's a little costly to do, because then you have to try and figure out what to do with all the rest of them, because again, if you're only playing with just 2 adding to your team, you have 9 sets of other stuff you're not going to go with, plus all the event cards. If you're never going to play the event, you have all them event cards that are kind of going to waste. The whole integration of the event cards, I really find that as a neat idea. And I would love to actually see that maybe brought into a even like a non-organized play, or some way that like players could pick up other things like that instead. Maybe to represent other things that are happening in the Star Trek universe that kind of mess with your characters. There are sometimes just, other things going on, like, hey, there's a spy, or there's I know there's episodes where there's like a Romulan that's on the ship, and like, is it really the Romulan? Is it this? Or there's like this thing going on. And I get that those things wouldn't necessarily happen during this Battle of Wolf 395. But they could have some interesting events like that. Again, you just have a thing, have an extra deck that starts out at the beginning of the game. Hey, you draw a card. This is what's going to kind of mess with your characters for the turn. This is going to do this. Maybe some of them have like different factions even. Like, flip a card up and it's like, if you're Federation, this happens. You're a Romulan, faction, this happens. Borg, this happens. That might only get complicated if you're trying to play with, if they have more factions in later, because then they might not be included. But that's easy enough to like include update cards and stuff. But yeah, I think the event idea is really cool. I think it's a neat idea to add some extra little chaos to the game. I think Q as himself playing as a character that comes on the board, and these cards are constantly being activated. Whether you're playing with them like Game 4, just add them to your team, or you're swapping them up for your specialists. Either way, I think it would be a fun thing to do once in a while. But I also think because he has his own little thing going on, that he's not just going to mesh with your team exactly. So it's kind of like adding an additional step you have to take. Like, my team's doing this, and then now Q's doing this. But it's still pretty cool. But I guess there's really no direct way to like just add new cards into a deck because they have different backs. But that's what we have, so definitely fun. Hope you guys enjoy it. I don't often promote my other stuff or other things, but I will eventually be, because you've seen I do have these extra ones, I will be putting these up on to my eBay page at some point. I'll try, when I post this, I'll try and post a link in the description. So they might be available for a little while after the video goes up, but I don't know how long they'll last. So there we go. Alright, see you guys later. Bye.